all the chemistry stuff that we thought was certain and worked the way we thought it was supposed to, doesn't.
Yeah.
Right, how many of you have had a chem class at all? Chemistry class of any sort? All right, cool. Different, yeah, excellent. Right? So how do you describe electrons?
Electrons are we describe electrons as subatomic particles, but
Okay, yeah.
but in that way, like you could say it when you form it together, it's it becomes electricity, but at the same time you don't really get an explanation of what it individually is.
Yeah, can you ever see an electron? No, we have to describe it in terms of shells, right?
Right.
It's a sphere around the nucleus. Huh?
It's like a cloud.
It's like iCloud. Where this presentation's coming. In fact, this is electrons coming to us, isn't it? Mind blown. All right? But the whole point is that we can't ever know that an electron is definitely going to be where we think it is, or say it is. In fact, if we look for it in a particular place, it's never there. We can only say where an electron won't be, and the answer is anywhere we look. They're pesky little bastards. All right? They avoid us. And it turns out that our lives are very much the same. What's the most dependable thing you can say about human beings?
We'll kill each other.
For the most part, but I think the most dependable thing you can say about human beings,
we will die.
Human beings are flawed.
yeah, is that they're not dependable.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay? You can't ever say anything, which means we're probable. The word to describe this that you'll want to know is the notion of contingency. Or contingent. We have entered into the world now. The world. It's a whole new world of contingency. Okay? Right? We're in the world of the contingent now, as opposed to the world of the necessary or the ideal. Right? Which is the world we exist in, because nothing's for certain. So, it turns out that all of this logic, this system of logic that has been studied for thousands of years, literally 2,500 years we've been going on this. All right, and there's people whose entire careers and lives have been dedicated to studying, A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. People like, brilliant, to Harvard with you, kind of thing like that. Right? Do you know who first laid out the syllogism as a system, a structural system? Huh? Aristotle. Yeah, the example that gets used for the syllogism is as follows. All human beings, and I'm gonna gender paraphrase it, all human beings are mortal. Socrates was a human being, therefore Socrates is mortal. Alright, that's the one that Aristotle writes, because if you're Greek, you're talking about Socrates. So this idea of field dependency then, right? This is like being a debater versus being in the band and stuff and everything. And field dependency is the notion that, this is a little wordy, right? Evaluation criteria depend on the nature of the problem or the kind of problems involved. Best example, right? Argument with your parents. Right? Hey, I'm going to go out with my friends or whatever. Mom says what? No. What do you ask? Why not? And what do they say? Because. Yeah, boom. End of argument, right? That is a valid argument in that argumentative field. Right? It carries weight. It has force. It works. It wins. Usually. Until you sneak out once they're asleep. Not that any of you would do that. I'm sure you're all angels. All right? Yeah. Huh? Twitter is not the same as going out. You can work on that. Anyway, that's a field, a particular argument field. Now, if that happened with your friends, if you would let's go to, I don't know, you don't go to the bar. Let's go to McDonald's. Okay? And somebody was like, no. And you were like, well, why not? And they said, because I said so. You'd be like, well, F you, I'm going to McDonald's. Right? That field of argument has a different set of validity criteria for what constitutes a successful, valid, important word here, persuasive argument. Right? Sound argumentation is argumentation then that is conducted in accordance with a formally valid procedure. It's about following the rules for how you do it. And in conformance with the specific soundness conditions of the field or subject that's involved. So if you follow the right, so think about debate. How many stupid argument rules do we have in debate?
Well, a few do we have.
Huh?
We have general.
We don't have truths, but we have a lot of norms, perhaps, or something like locality or framework and stuff like that. What are those debates about?
What are those fields?
Yeah, not just what are, but they're about the size, the boundaries of the field, and what the appropriate validity criteria within that field ought to be. Yeah.
Because I know, because like, there's no certain set number of arguments. There's no certain argument you can run in debate. Like, I know people made, I think, one of the group, like, I don't think they made, but I've heard you, I don't know about the counter-advocacy.
Yeah, that's, specific things don't really, it doesn't, but you get the idea, right? Yeah. Cool, so, continuing with Mr. Toulmin. There's 6 parts, right? He develops this model of how arguments work, and there's 6 parts to it. All right, they are, up there, claim, data, warrant, backing, qualifier, and reservation. All right? These are the pieces that go into any argument that's an argument, really, of any sort. You can always find them if you poke around a little bit, look for them. And these are essentially the 6 ways that you can answer an argument. Because if you can defeat any of these, you can usually defeat the argument as well. You can kind of pick it apart or whatnot. All right, the first one is the claim. The claim is an expressed opinion or conclusion that the arguer wants, like, to be accepted, basically. All right? In the argument model we have, it's going to be the end of the argument. You assemble all of the other pieces to make the claim good, valid. Well, no, the argument's valid, but to make the claim accepted. But in debate, we always kind of, if we're doing it right, we usually start with the claim. So where do your claims usually show up in debate rounds? Yeah, I guess. But that's not a claim. Huh? The tags is where you find the claims most of the time. And even then, you can sort of usually reduce it. You can be like, the plan solves is a claim, right? And you want someone to either agree with you or not agree with you. What's ultimately the sort of most important piece of the plan text? Let's assume in the context of the debate that there's a plan in this debate we're talking about for the time being. What is the claim that's being advanced by the affirmative in the debate?
This plan is topical.
Nah, not in a tea debate maybe, just generally speaking.
This plan will succeed in the world.
Yeah, too specific.
We should put.
Okay, getting warmer. Yeah. The plan is better than the status quo or any competitive alternatives. Of the ideas that have been presented in this debate, the plan's the best. But there's a bigger claim that's even operating too. What are you trying to do in every debate round? Yes, thank you. Keep it super simple here, right? And all of a sudden things start to make sense. You're trying to win. Okay? The claim, the easy way to sort of look for the claim is ask your question, where are you going with that? Where are you going? If you ask the question, where are you going, whatever the answer to that is, that's probably the claim you're trying to do. So where are you going in a debate round? You're trying to win. Where are you going in a tea debate? Trying to prove you're topical. Where are you going in a critique debate? If you're the affirmative. You're trying to prove, right, that your advocacy, be it the plan or something else, that whatever it is that you stand for, right, is better than what the negative is standing for, or that some combination of all of you and some or all of them is better than them. Right, that's where you're going in all of these instances. That's the claim. Next, the data. Data are facts or conditions that are objectively observable beliefs, or premises accepted as true by the audience, or conclusions that have previously been established as true. It's a mouthful. What's it sound? I mean, so what's going on? What's a piece of data?
There are things that are already proven to be true, or things that
Can be found.
Latvian argumentation is true.
Good. In that particular field of argumentation, the following is accepted as generally true. Most people agree. Huh?
The
Sky is blue, right? Right? In the case of the syllogism, right, all humans are mortal. Everybody's going to die eventually. which is, you're gonna have a hard time answering that, because it's, pretty, so far, that one's batting 1,000, right? I.e., they're not really in disputes. The way you ask that question, to turn it into this sort of like interrogation form, is to ask, so, what do you got to go on? Right, where are you going, and what kind of car are you taking? What are you driving in? Data hopefully makes sense. Not a whole lot I can do. Good? Good on the data? Excellent. All right. Now here's the rest of the debate round. This is where all the debating happens. It's the warrant. Right? The warrant expresses the reasoning that you use to put the data, get from the data to the claim. The sky is blue, therefore vote affirmative. Right? Legitimate claim, vote affirmative. I want you to agree, and therefore do it. We can both agree that the sky is blue, but I'm guessing the negative does not agree with the argument, the sky is blue, therefore vote affirmative. Is that a good argument?
No.
No. Why is it a bad argument?
Well, it has no purpose.
Well, it has a purpose. The purpose is to vote affirmative, and unquestionably has a purpose. There's a claim embedded within there. No doubt about it. Huh?
No warrant.
Thank you. No warrant. Right? There's no warrant. Nothing links the two. And think of the warrant as, how many of you have seen the movie Office Space? It's probably too old.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, one of you. It's the jump to conclusions.
It's the one where the guy, becomes, really relaxed.
Yes, yeah. Right? It's, remember, it's the guy from work who creates the jump to conclusion.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's how do you get from point A to point B? What leap of logic and or reasoning do you take to explain that the data and the claim, that the data justifies the claim, essentially? Right? As you can imagine, this is where all of the work is happening in the background, right? So when we say an argument is unwarranted, the sky is blue, therefore vote affirmative, that has no warrant in it. Right? How did you get there? Is the way that you ask that question. So, if you're going to look at it, there's a real simple graphical version. You're going along the data to claim highway, and the warrant is the bridge, essentially, that takes you over the river of disbelief. Now it should make perfect sense to everyone, right? Once I said river of disbelief, then you were like, oh, I get it. The warrant is the most important part. Otherwise, I don't have my laser pointer. I left it at home. I had a core mode with a laser pointer to make this super slick and look like I'm giving a TED talk. But I don't have it, so I'm not cool anymore, I'm sorry. But otherwise, that bridge breaks, right? You can't get across if you don't have the warrant. So let's use an example. A great place to see this model in action and understand the notion of field validity is in medicine. All right? Because medicine uses an interesting technique. It's called differential diagnosis. All right? But, did any of you ever watch House? Yeah, right? It's a whole show basically about it. So they eliminate things, right? They don't start and then build up. You eliminate, you cross things off because you look at the data, and on the basis of the data then, you warrant your way to a conclusion. So, diagnosis is great. Let's say 12 hours ago, a patient shows up in the emergency room, they fell off their motorcycle, right? They got a bad blow to the head, there's a deep scalp wound, they're bleeding all over the place, they're pale, they're dizzy, they're lethargic, they have a low-grade fever. What's wrong with them? Huh? They have a closed head wound, they have a concussion.
Yeah, big hit.
Right? Yeah. Now, you have a concussion though, not a useful argument. There's no claim in that, really. There is, but that's more just a piece of data.
But so we have to figure out what the concussion means.
No, even then, you're just dataing me.
Yeah.
Find the solution.
Right? Yeah, you need to suggest some sort of action. Arguments, and this is a really important thing here, right? Arguments necessarily, all right? Arguments are a form of persuasion, all right? And the way that you can smell persuasion, that you can know it's around, right? You can hear it sneaking up on you, and you can hear arguments sneaking up on you as well, is that they always ask people to do something. If there's no motion, there's no argument. Arguments move things. They mostly move people. Now in a debate round, what do arguments move? The judge. Yeah. They persuade the judge to do what? Vote for you. That's it. That's trophies from the ceiling, and whoever they hit, they're good. You know, no.
When we're gonna have that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's week 3. Alright? You know? Yeah, that's the trophy drop. So, the claim we have here is what the doctor does, right? The doctor recommends a treatment. Right? Antibiotics, flush the wound, some bed rest. Right? And that's what they would suggest in that case. There's nothing you can do about a concussion. You know, you're just concussed. So they're just like, duh, don't die. Everybody good? Great. Yeah, clean the blood and everything and just, you know, watch it. But you can't just get right. Here's the problem with most practice of medicine these days, and I come from a family of doctors. I'm like the black sheep embarrassment of coach's debate, right? Is most doctors, when they're sitting there talking to patients, let's say you go in with a family member and you fell off your motorcycle. Anybody ever ride a motorcycle? No? I didn't think so.
My dad does.
Right? So, okay, your dad fell off his motorcycle. This is true, right?
Yep.
The doctor usually, oh wait, this is not going to,
He's gonna die.
right?
Bill,
Yeah.
paper.
Anyway, pretend the warrant's not there, all right? Go on a journey with me, imagination. All right? Most of the time, they just tell you the data on the claim. Is that very persuasive to people? No,
Not really.
because there's not a reason, i.e. there's no reasoning that's been invoked to explain why that's true. All they're saying, basically, is, and when your mom says, you can't go out, and you say, why? And she says, because I said so, is that very persuasive to you?
No.
No.
Because what way does her words have?
Well, I mean, no, she's got power, right? She can coerce, but coercion is different than persuasion. Those are the two ways that you can make people other than yourself do things. You can coerce them or persuade them. So, you need a warrant. So if the doctor says, well, we found forever that in the absence of any type of preventive measures, injuries of these kinds can lead to a really bad infection. So, those are pretty dangerous. So we think you should probably get this wound flushed and get it stitched up, and take some antibiotics to prevent an infection, and then get some bed rest. Okay, right? When they have that warrant there that's been included, suddenly it becomes much more persuasive when you just explain something to someone. This is, I know a lot of people that study like medical communication, like in-com studies and arguments, stuff like that. It's a really interesting place. It's like one of the bigger breakdowns in argumentation we've ever had in our society. It's just like that disconnect. Where we have so many malpractices. Okay, 3 more things. The first is backing. Backing is the warrant for the warrant. So, suppose I said, well, experience suggests that injuries of this type can lead to infection. What would be, why would you potentially need, what if somebody looked at you and was just like, why? I don't believe you. Straight left.
The backing be, well, infections lead to death, so you'll kind of want to.
Yeah, that's kind of, but backing's more explaining why the warrant is true. It leads to infections. Yeah.
How?
Okay, we'll go here then there.
Okay.
Okay.
So in this particular instance, why is, what is the difference between backing and data?
Because backing is still some type of reasoning, right? Data is just like the sky is blue.
So what's the difference between backing and reasoning?
Interesting.
Huh?
I don't know, what do you think? Huh?
I don't know. I don't think there's, at least in the context that you were explaining, I don't understand the difference.
Okay, a couple things. First is data is usually not field dependent. All right, data is stuff that you can just be like we use the example the sky is blue because everyone agrees that the sky is blue.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if I walked out and I said, and I started talking to just some rando hipster I find downtown in Denton, and I'm just like, I really think we need to make sure that this topic stays a little bit smaller so it doesn't get in a hand, and they're like, huh? And I'm like, well, constructives are 8 minutes. Right? That's a fact.
Right.
Yeah. And they'd be like, huh? Right? Backing is
so
usually
data
more...
is like
although the difference is fuzzy, truthfully, all right? Think of it this way, though. Backing are the things that sort of underpin the warrant in your argument, whereas the data are the things, right? And data is just a sort of true-false proposition, right? Whereas backing looks closer to a warrant than, well, no, it looks like data, basically, hence the syllogism, or the analogy I posted. All right, you had a question. There, then there.
Oh, I forgot.
Fine.
So, just to make sure I got it, so.
I'm not sure I get it either, so let's be fair.
If we were doing the warming debate, a claim would be our plan solves the warming.
Sure.
The data might be, the warming would kill us all.
No, that's not close enough to a universal premise.
Like, a data would be warming is anti-protection.
Nah, still disputable.
Okay, everything about warming is disputable.
Everything about everything is disputable.
How about the ocean? How about claiming the ocean is scary?
I'm not scared of the ocean.
No, I'm not scared of the ocean.
Yeah, no, I think the ocean's awesome.
Pretty cool.
All right, I'm gonna get back to you before you forget.
Okay.
Yeah, what's your name?
Alexis.
Alexis. All right, that's the first name I've learned, and will subsequently forget quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, don't take it personally. I'm not gonna know your names until next week. I'm like literally practically like face blind. I've like seen doctors about this, so I'll like know who you are, but I just won't put a name to it. It's literally like a cognitive problem I have. So like don't be offended. It's me. I suck.
So-
You're all wonderful people. Alexis.
Yes. So for the concussion, the warrant would be infection. So would the backing be like, explain how it could lead to infection?
Infection Peru.
I could,
Why
serious?
is it the case that in the absence of preventive measures, infection can happen? We would say, well, we have a lot of previous clinical experience over the years, and it suggests this, which is ultimately where empiricism comes in. Right? And why empiricism is such an important part of scientific argument, and argument really anywhere. Because we can say, well, we've studied it over time. Every analogous example that we've looked at over and over and over follows this pattern. Right? So the pattern's not perfect. It doesn't happen 100% of the time because we're in the real world, not the fake logic world. Therefore, I'll get there, it's cool. Right? Therefore, we can't do it, we're not 100% on this, but it's fairly patterned and it's fairly predictable that this is true. Previous clinical experience. Okay, these two questions. Here, then there.
What is empiricism?
Oh,
No. No. Let's just take we'll get there later. Let's put it now. Yeah.
Going back to that warrant kind of looks like a discipline.
Kind of, yeah. All right. Let me get the other two things out here before we start sort of like running off into the other ones here. All right. Qualifier is the fifth piece. All right. It is a colloquial adverb or an adverbial phrase. What is a colloquial adverb?
Colloquial is like sometimes when I talk together, like people be like, that's colloquial.
Yeah. It's
So,
a
like, what is that?
generally accepted but technically grammatically incorrect way to do something. So colloquial adverb is a modifier that has been transformed into an adverb. So, if I said, it wasn't hard for me to get here, right? I only drove 1,300 miles. I was in Michigan, all right? I only drove 1,300 miles to get here.
How long
Alright.
is that drive?
I know.
Huh?
Some hours.
I left yesterday at 6 a.m. I slept for about 5 hours last night. Oh, I woke up at 6 a.m. to leave, but I didn't get out of the house right away.
You really that was?
Huh?
You really that was?
No, they just painted that well. No. I only drove 1,300 miles, okay? You would know what I meant, but that is not an actually correct statement. Because I did lots of other things. I ate breakfast, I had lunch, I listened to some music, I did lots of other things. right? In fact, I drove, the way to correctly do this, and this is important for your writing, okay? To use proper grammar and it is right. I drove only 1,300 miles. Not 1,302, not 1,301. I drove only 1,300 miles. Not I only drove 1,300 miles. But the first one uses the colloquial adverb form. The second one is proper. We can use words like strongly, probably, certainly, possibly. These are all the same examples of that, right? You take a word like strong, possible, certain. You put an ly on the back of them, you've got an adverb now, i.e. something that modifies the verbal act, the action of the sentence. So we can use those to ask how certain are we about the strength of the claim that we're making. Like always, never, those sorts of words. Just, I'll get there. I know that you're like, and? The qualifier is related to a reservation, right? And reservations are circumstances or conditions that will undermine the argument. Sometimes the warrant is not applicable. The easiest way to think of this is the phrase, except when.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
I guess looking at this through the lens of debate, would the sentence sometimes the warrant is not applicable be talking about like if a tagline of a card is speaking to a specific warrant in the card, however there are other warrants that support other claims that are not made by the tagline?
Yeah, basically. So that's why you would not put the word like always.
Yeah.
Or kind of thing, right? So the, right? Like the sky is always blue.
Yeah.
No, that's gray sometimes. We know the blue one's behind it, but whatever, right? It's a qualifier because reservations and qualifiers reservations limit the strength of the warrant and therefore the strength of the argument. So, let's go back to our little example. Backing is linked to the warrant, whereas the qualifier and reservation are farther down the bridge. So if we use our medical example again, 12 hours ago, severe head blow, scalp wounds, or lethargic, we say in the absence of preventative measures, injuries of this kind can lead to the infection, which has been proved or is suggested by previous clinical experience. We strongly suggest, right, flushing the wound, stitching it, administering penicillin, and providing bed rest. Because penicillin is the most effective, with the exception of instances when the patient is allergic to penicillin. Sometimes the warrant, right, isn't applicable. Sometimes previous clinical experience, while generally useful, has exceptions that are problematic. So including the reservation strengthens the argument. Because if your argument is just the claim, right, and somebody says, what if they're allergic? Right? I mean, how many of you have been to the doctor in the last ever?
So,
What's the first question they ask you when you check in at the doctor? After, can I see your insurance card, please? Right? First they work the payment out, then what do they ask? Are you allergic to any medications? Right? A very important reservation.
so is the reservation kind of like what it sounds like in terms of, it's like,
But just make sure there's a table for
something
dinner
that
for
is,
you.
huh?
But just make sure they have a table for you for dinner. I'm joking.
Oh, like the reservation.
Yeah, Yeah, make a table for two, please. At 8 o'clock for Gonzalez. Yeah. Who's coming? Well, we're making a reservation. We can make space for everybody. Seriously, we'll do it again. How's the cafeteria this year? Same as last year?
And
It's all actually works.
Huh? Oh, good. Good. I'm feeling very positive about that. It's the same cafeteria as last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Good. Not good. So the reservation is something, right? The reservation is something someone says to you. You include it in part of your argument. Right? Think of the reservation as sort of the preempt. Yeah. I know some people are allergic to this. This is obviously for people who aren't allergic. Does that make sense?
I think all of a sudden we said it was like, okay.
Cool, good, good. Does that help? Are we good?
So it is
Good.
like,
Huh?
so it is like,
Yes, that's what I just said. Yeah. Right. It says when it's not going to work. Otherwise, you're overclaiming things. And this is the important part, right? This is not about whether or not your claim is true. Because we're not in truth world. Right? We're in probabilistic contingency world. So what matters? How does an argument succeed?
Have it proven better.
Nah.
That is proven true.
No, you're still using proven.
Oh.
If it's probable.
It's contingent.
Thanks. No.
it's most probable.
No.
It's entailed to be probabilistic.
No.
It gets accepted.
Thank you. Must be persuasive, which is to say that the audience for whom it is intended accepts the argument. Now, does saying some people are allergic to penicillin, you know, like a tenth of the percent of the population is allergic to penicillin, they might get itchy. You know, when are you going to do that? Right? Does that defeat this claim?
No.
No, it doesn't make it untrue. But it might, however, if you don't include the reservation, make it much less likely to get accepted by the audience. Right? Which is the problem if my sister's a pediatrician. Right? So, it's, I was going to say no offense, but actually yes offense to if there's any anti-vaxxers. Kind of thing like that, right? We have like a kind of problem now with kids that aren't getting vaccinated so much in the country anymore. Like, and stuff like that. We've got like sort of diseases that are coming back and stuff like that. Despite the fact that there's very little, in fact, zero evidence. The study that suggested that vaccines were linked to adverse outcomes was actually made up, as it turns out. But people see this when they come into the doctor's office, and the doctor, right, when they have like, you know, they come in with their new infant or whatever, and they're just like, you should really probably get them vaccinated, at least against measles, mumps, and rubella, so they don't die. Kind of thing like that. If you've ever seen a child that has those, it's horrifying and really, really sad, actually, as you see like a little like 6-month-old baby like wheezing itself to death. All right? So that's why you know, kind of thing like that. But everyone's like, why is it the case then that people, despite the fact that there's very little evidence, by very little I mean none, right, linking adverse outcomes to vaccines, that a lot of people, particularly in California, all right? Thank you. All right, particularly in California, particularly in the Bay Area. Actually, no, it's Orange County that's the worst. But aren't getting their children vaccinated.
That Jenny blah blah thing.
Huh?
The Jenny McCarthy thing.
Okay, yes, yeah, she does suck, in fairness. All right, a strong first, you know, way to throw your hat into the ring with the big guns. But the reason is because people aren't including enough reservations and warrants and stuff like that. They're relying on authority. Why should you vaccinate your kids? Because you should, because I said so. Instead of saying, here's all the previous clinical experience that indicates this fair, right? No one's explaining anything. And so anytime anyone says, well, I read this one page on the internet, or I listened to Jenny McCarthy said it was bad. All right, what are Jenny McCarthy's qualifications?
Not very strong.
Huh? Yeah. How did you, never mind that.
I have a question. So, in that scenario, what would, like, for example, if I said, in the like, if they had a reservation about the autism, and I said, there's been clinical, like, there's proof that the autism, like, studies were flawed, and because they were flawed, you know,
the easier way to deal with it, right? Here's the problem. Including reservations, it doesn't even have to be a reservation that's necessarily about the objection that is likely to be raised. So long as it demonstrates thoughtfulness and thoroughness on the part of the arguer. That's one of the important reasons that this is kind of part of the model. It's not just the formal validity, it's the persuasive appeal that it has. If I go in and I'm like, vaccinate your kids, right? They're like, no, Jenny McCarthy's so huggy. You know, and if I say, this is why, right, you should go in, you should do this is why, kind of thing, here are the different studies that have suggested it, sort of things like that. There are instances with some people who are allergic to some of the, like, sort of media that the vaccines are in, that they shouldn't have them. We will test your child before administering the vaccine with a very simple and painless test, and if so, we'll use an alternative vaccine then, so that there aren't any adverse effects. Just saying that one sentence right there eliminates 99.9% of objections.
And a malpractice lawsuit.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, vaccines are written out in most torts. You can't crap with anything. States written them out. They protect the manufacturers.
Sweet.
So does that that's important. You see what I'm getting at? The notion of persuasion is meaningful, not just haha, I'm right, therefore I win. Right? Being right does you 0% good in any human context. Right? I mean, who was the last person that was right and as a result, like, controlled the world? No one. Yeah, exactly. We're skipping the handout because okay, is this supposed to go till 2?
2:30.
2:20?
2:30.
Huh?
2:30.
No, 2:30 is the next one, I thought.
Hold on.
Yes.
It was 2:30, still 2:30. Next one starts at 2:40.
Well, that was, yeah, that went well. You know, I'm feeling very positive about that. How do you all feel?
Wait,
Good.
are
I
you
like it.
wait, are you
My
done?
life.
Is it
What about
over?
yours?
Wait, are you done?
With